Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous. That's the 2025 Subaru Solterra, which is the twin to the Toyota BZ4X. This one specifically, though, is a limited trim level, and it's in a color that Subaru likes to call lithium red pearl, which looks fantastic in person, even on an overcast day like today. It really contrasts the black plastic fenders well. This vehicle kind of has a lot of Subaru's function over form on the exterior, a lot of Toyota tech on the interior, and it's actually the only EV that either of these Japanese giants produce. And it's a collaboration between the two. So there's a lot to talk about. This is one of the best, most underrated EVs on the market today, but it's not perfect. So today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Subaru Solterra to help you guys decide at home if it might be the right vehicle for you, or if you should leave it at the lot and look at the other crossover EV competition. So today you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to Twin Falls Subaru for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested because they are a fantastic dealership that sells below MSRP. They ship all over the country. And with that said, let's dive right into this review. And if you like Subaru, the Solterra, or my video, please be so kind to consider liking my video. Basically, that lets me know you want to watch more stuff like this. It helps my video get shared. But I'll help you as well by having YouTube choose to show you more stuff like this. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Subaru or the Solterra, there's a few things that you guys should probably know. Subaru is a Japanese automaker, and they're one of the best. Currently, they are rated #1 in reliability by Consumer Reports for this year, which is pretty cool. They've worked a long way to get here. They've climbed to the top by making refinements, making revisions to their platforms for many, many years. But this thing is completely different than anything the Japanese maker has ever made before. This is actually assembled in Japan, though, before being shipped to the United States market. They're also sold in Canada, and the sales numbers really aren't that fantastic. Unfortunately, they didn't make a whole lot of units the first year of this in 2023, and they didn't sell very many more units last year for 2024. I do think 2025 might be the game changer, though, for this platform, because there's a few changes, not necessarily to the vehicle itself, but to the price point. These have all dropped in price, MSRP about $6,500. Some dealerships like Twin Falls Subaru are offering about $4,500 off right off the bat, and we're only starting to get into the year 2025. So these could be a really good deal. The base model before discounts is about $38,000. The most loaded newest trim level, which is the fourth highest, is the Onyx Edition. It's basically the blacked out version, and that MSRP is for $45,000. This one, being a limited, it's around a $42,000 vehicle. It has a few options, destination delivery, and after the discount, it's only about $40,000, which is well under the average new vehicle price at around $48,000. And I do think it offers a lot more than most other vehicles. And as we get through the interior, you're going to see that this actually doesn't have as many compromises, and it doesn't have the same EV feel that a lot of other EVs have. This still feels like a traditional vehicle. It's easy to figure out the controls. It's easy to hop into it and go. Sure, the range might not be the best. These are rated for around 220 miles of range, although I will say when I got into it today and it had 100%, it speculated almost 250 miles of range. But after a few minutes of driving, that quickly dropped down to about 200, which I think is a much more realistic expectation you can have out of this. It might not be the fastest charging or the most powerful with only 215 horsepower and 249 pound-feet of torque, but it's actually pretty quick, as you'll see in our 0 to 60 near the end of this video, and it just drives well. It drives like a Subaru. It has over 8 inches of ground clearance, and it doesn't really have a whole lot of compromises. Other than the range, this doesn't necessarily feel like an EV. It definitely does feel like an EV that a company like Subaru, a company like Toyota would develop, and it kind of has the Frankenstein monster, best parts of all of it. It has all the Toyota tech, which in most cases is better than Subaru's, but it has the Subaru capability and functionality, which usually is better than Toyota's. So there's a lot of exciting things to see as we go throughout this video, and honestly, if you can get past all the black plastic cladding that is traditionally known for Subarus in the modern era, this is actually a kind of quirky, kind of interesting, fun little vehicle, and I like it a lot. And if you're unsure which trim level to get of the 4 currently offered, the Limited might be the best value. For the price point that this is, you get these 20-inch wheels if you are into having larger wheels. It also has a 12.3-inch screen, which is very much a Toyota screen. And then Harman Kardon speakers, which is typically the name brand speakers that Subarus go with, and they do sound decent in this application. It also has a heated steering wheel, heated seats. There's no glass on the roof, no panoramic sunroof or anything the way that this one is rated, but it does have a 360-degree camera, which is really cool. And it also has kind of a self-park feature in certain situations, as well as a few other minor things here and there. So for about 40 grand after the discounts, this really has a lot of tech while having a fairly stout powertrain and power plant, and Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive, which I can say puts the power down quite well. And then I really like driving these because the physics of them actually have a lot going for it. It's about 15.3 feet long, so it's easy to park, it's easy to maneuver around, and it has a 10-foot wheelbase. So while being only about 3 or 4 inches longer than a Subaru Forester, the wheelbase is over a foot longer, so it's very planted and stable on the road, while still being about 6 feet wide and 5.5 feet tall. It weighs about 4,500 pounds, so maybe 800 pounds more than a Subaru Forester. Most of that is the difference between having a 72.8 kilowatt hour battery pack right around here holding the vehicle down, very low center of gravity, and then has a very impressive payload capacity of 1,045. So that's 145 pounds more than basically any other Subaru crossover. It also has a tow rating, which isn't disclosed. So it's kind of speculated that these could tow up to a few thousand pounds, but I don't think they're rated to tow in the North American market. And then has 8.3 inches of ground clearance, and it can do a full circle in about 36 feet. And then the last few things to mention here is the charge door is located on the driver's side. It is a 72 kilowatt hour battery. It can charge from 0 to 80% in just under an hour, and it's easy to access. Just keep in mind where you have your level 2 charger installed in the garage if that is the route you go with this vehicle. And then this one being the Limited, it has a 20-inch wheel wrapped in a Bridgestone Transit tire that has a 235/50/20 rating, and it seems to have around 8 to 9 30-seconds of tread. And then this is your key. Basically, it's a Toyota key with a Subaru emblem on it. But you have lock, unlock, you have power liftgate or hatch release depending on your model. You can turn on the HVAC, and then you can use the panic button. But you can also just leave this in your pocket because you do have Subaru and Toyota proximity key features right there to get into and out of the vehicle. And also the mirrors can fold in when it's completely locked up and the alarm is set. And in 30-something degree weather, I am glad that we are moving on to the interior. The door panel is very much Toyota. All the materials, the black plastics, it all looks like a Toyota, even the shiny piano black finish. Harman Kardon speakers though, that is Subaru. And then you have kind of an interesting door pocket, a couple bottles could fit there. Nothing on the door sill. The all-weather mats are not yet installed. You have rubberized dead pedal, regular pedals, hood release, knee airbag. Those are your options, automatic high beams and the power liftgate. You have vents, you have the screen, you have the lighting stock, you have paddle shifters for regen braking, which don't really seem to do a whole lot. They are very unnoticeable compared to something like Tesla. And then you have a power memory seat. You guys can see that, 2 memory options for your driver position. It's all powered, it's heated, and no power moonroof up top. So if you don't like having a lot of glass above your head, this might be the right vehicle for you. But then check out that EV transmission tunnel. That is really cool. How many plugins? You have a couple USB-Cs, and just how much stuff you can carry in this vehicle, where it has basically a flat loading floor throughout the front and the back. And then sitting inside here is pretty interesting. Feels a lot like a Toyota. That door panel theme from Toyota's park bin really kind of follows into the interior, but there's a lot of bespoke parts in here. The steering wheel being flat top and bottom, having that different instrument cluster behind it, it's kind of interesting. You have the Toyota large screen, and when we fire it up, let's see what happens. The seat moves forward to the memory seat position. HVAC's turning on. We have Solterra pop up in the graphics. And there's not really a lot else that's happening. The horn, it's high-pitched, fairly loud. These are all Toyota buttons, just slightly re-engineered. The adaptive cruise on this actually works so well. On the sticker, it doesn't say if it's Toyota's or Subaru's system. This doesn't look like Subaru's EyeSight system, but actually operates just like it. So either way, it's a good one. You can see currently I have 91%, 184 miles, but I have been enjoying this vehicle, romping around on it a little bit. And then that is very much Toyota's instrument cluster and all their options. You can see how many miles per kilowatt hour you're getting. And then the giant screen, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. This does have traffic sign recognition, which is really cool that the speed limit will pop up on the cluster. And then these buttons, I think they work pretty good. I like this more than if they are completely screen integrated. Maybe not as much as physical, but they actually are pretty responsive. You have some vents, you have all of your Toyota controls for electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold. You can adjust the foot pedal there. You have your drive modes if you want to go between power and eco. That's about all you have. You have the 360-degree camera. You have your parking assist, but we're already parked right there, so it's not going to do a whole lot for us. You have your X modes, which come from Subaru. You can adjust that a little bit, and then you have traction control with a wireless charger under here and some kind of like a privacy vent, so I don't think people from the outside can see in here, but from your point of view, you can see down into it. A couple cup holders. This all feels like Toyota. And then you have a decent sized center console. Surprisingly, no plugins. I guess that's because the plugins in the 12 volt are all down there. Rear view mirror. I think it looks more like a Toyota, but then you have these buttons, kind of like a Subaru. And up top, you have some lighting. Kind of interesting, the design. This just extends, it doesn't slide. And you have more Toyota parts bin parts. With that said, let's turn it off and we'll hop in the back. All right, as we hop into the back seat, let's see how wide the doors open, if they're Subarus or Toyotas. That's really sad. That is Toyota. Look how barely open that thing is, and that's at the full lockout position. So it's gonna be a little bit harder to get big dogs, to get carriers for children and for pets in the back of here. At least the seat's high enough that I don't really have to drop down too far, and then it's high enough that it's gonna be easier to exit the vehicle. But I'm really sad that the door panels don't open up further on those hinges. Otherwise, the materials back here are actually pretty nice. I'm surprised you still have black plastic cladding, especially when pets and kids are gonna scratch that up. This, for being a Subaru, is maybe the least child and pet friendly in the back. But the seats, they look really comfortable. Let's see if they lay flat. That's a Toyota handle right there. And it's mostly flat. The seat itself is overall pretty flat, but then there is a little drop down here. There's also no spare tire in the back, which is unfortunate. And how heavy are these? They're a little bit heavier than traditional Subaru seats. Do we have the child safety anchors? Yes, we do. And if we hop into the back, I have this much room in front of my knees, which is very good. Can I recline? Ooh, I can recline. That is awesome. I have vents, I have plugins, I have heated seats. I have an armrest, which is actually pretty nice, pretty sturdy. And at 5'11", my head, if I lean back far enough, is rubbing the ceiling. So that's unfortunate. The windows, again, are kind of Toyota small, but overall, it's a pretty nice place to be, but it is a very dark interior. The back bench is actually pretty comfortable. The front, after driving this around for a while, this is Toyota seat comfort, which is not as good as Subaru seat comfort, but I think most people are still going to be just fine and happy with it. But seat comfort is very subjective. And with that said, let me hop out and I'll show you the hatch. The back of the Solterra, I think, looks pretty interesting. It's probably designed for function over form again, just like the rest of the exterior. But it's kind of strange because there's a lot of curves, but there's a lot of sharp angles. And there's a split spoiler design with a shark fin antenna, so kind of fascinating. But when we do try to open it up, it has a few different ways to get into it. You can push the button on the dashboard. You could push the button underneath the Subaru emblem, climb through the back seats, or use the power liftgate on the remote, which you paid for. It actually opens pretty quick, a little bit faster than average, I would say. And then back here, you have about 28 cubic feet of room. When you drop the seats, though, you have about 60. It might look like there should be more, but this is extremely angled. It's a pretty good degree coming down, so you really miss a lot of room capabilities that more of a wagon, high, longer roofline would have given you. Also, this, because of the shape, it opens really high. So be careful when you are in your garage that you don't bump the ceiling or something else. And then you have the Harman Kardon subwoofer. I can reach the seats and I can drop them at 5'11", but it is kind of a stretch. You don't have the handles like you do on a Subaru, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish they did include those. And then under here, there's just a little bit more storage because there is no spare tire. So that's kind of sad, but you do have some pretty good room in this vehicle. And then you can lower it, or you can lower it and lock it right here. The passenger side of the Solterra is interesting. You also have proximity key features to get in and out. The door panel opens probably wider than the back one. And then you have all the same materials, you just don't have as much switchgear on the front. You also don't have all of the lumbar controls for this seat, but still, it looks comfortable. And is this a VIN? Yeah, that's kind of cool, kind of like Mazda. You have a VIN number cover right there on the passenger side. My backpack is enjoying the heated seats, although in today's drive they didn't seem to get as hot as I was hoping for. More storage, ventilation, and non-locking glove box. If I can find a way to open this thing up, I will show you right here. Under the hood is, again, the 215 horsepower and 249 foot-pound-feet of torque motors. One in the front, one in the rear. It's all-wheel drive, Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive, and it's tuned to have very good traction and to be incredibly difficult to actually lose traction. And I do think the system looks good, but as engineering has said in a video I watched a long time ago, if you don't have a frunk, that is just sloppy engineering. You probably could have made this more concise, but would the price point have been higher? It probably would have. So would the trade-off have been worth it just for a little bit more storage? In reality, it probably wouldn't have, but it would have been a nice little fun party trick to have a frunk on this that you could actually use, because you can see there is a lot of room. There's a lot of space. Everything is just spread out fairly well. I don't think it needs that for heat reduction to prevent components from getting too close together. It's probably just gonna help the ease of maintenance down the road and be one less thing to remove out of your way if you ever have to work on it. But otherwise, all the reservoirs are up top and honestly kind of in similar spots to where they usually would be. And even though this is an EV, you still have a traditional battery and a fuse box right there. So overall, I think it's probably acceptable for about $40,000, although a frunk would have been nice. With that said, let's drop the hood, take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the Subaru Solterra. First of all, we need to get up to speed. In power mode, this thing gets right up there. It's one of the fastest Subarus that I have ever tested, especially being a bone stock example. But how does it drive? Well, first of all, visibility is actually pretty decent. The window size is similar to my RAV4. It's a little bit smaller than a lot of other Subaru models, but still you have enough visibility. The side mirrors are ginormous, and you can see right down the center of this vehicle because overall it's not overly large. And then it's kind of an interesting setup. Having all of the Toyota controls really helps. Having the flat bottom and flat top steering wheel is just kind of interesting. I don't find that it's difficult to find a good, comfortable position. The heated feature is nice, but it doesn't seem to be getting as hot as I was expecting for having the heated wheel on full features. And then you have tons of storage, tons of cargo capacity in this little thing for how compact it is. And it seems to handle pretty well. With over 8 inches of ground clearance, this is more capable than most other crossover EVs on the market. Most of them have around 6 inches of ground clearance. But let's see how this thing corners when we slow it down. The brakes feel pretty linear. Feels like the vehicle's staying very flat, very loaded. And with that low center of gravity, corners probably as good as any other Subaru that I have driven, other than maybe like a lower WRX or something. So overall, this is actually a pretty good driving vehicle. But when we're up to speed, what about passing power? If we're going 50, say there's a slow-moving semi on the side. Yeah, even going up a little bit of a hill, it pulls pretty good. And the range isn't actually dropping nearly as quickly as I was expecting it to for how many accelerations I have done in this thing. It's powerful enough that you can get out of its own way quite well, but it's not so powerful that it's going to make the average person nauseous and feel sick and all that stuff. There's going to be a little bit of a bump up in the road, and we're going to see how the suspension handles on these 20-inch wheels. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with it. The things I'm not as impressed with is the seats. They're not quite as comfortable as Subaru seats are traditionally. Also, the heated features don't seem to be working very well. So I'm a little bit bummed out about that, especially on a cold, rainy day like today. But honestly, the overall driving impressions of this is pretty good. The mitigation system, if you do turn your eyes away from the road for more than a second or two, as I've experienced in CGI simulations, it does actually beep at you pretty quick, but this isn't beeping at me too much. And overall, it's a pretty fun vehicle to drive. Surprisingly good for being a Subaru and Toyota twin EV. So with that said, I highly recommend you guys test drive one of these for yourself, especially with that big, massive price cut that they have for this year. This is a pretty good option for about $40,000. Anyways, let me get to the private road and we'll do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the Subaru Solterra. Density altitude is about 3,300 feet, which shouldn't matter because this is an EV. 98% battery. We are in power mode. I'm just going to hit the gas pedal or the power pedal and we'll see what happens. That is surprisingly quick for a Subaru. 0 to 60 came in at 6.3 seconds. True time, or a little bit faster without rollout. My final thoughts of the 2025 Subaru Solterra, or the twin BZ4X equivalent. Actually, I like this a lot more than I did when I drove one last 2 years ago. I didn't do a video on one last year because I didn't think I'd be as interested, and I just kind of forgot about this platform, honestly. Not a lot of people buy these, not a lot of people even see them on the road, or probably even know they exist. They also had that funny recall about a year ago where the wheels were literally falling off, and some of the hub assemblies had to be replaced. But honestly, I think this is a pretty nice vehicle. For about 40 grand, you get a lot of tech. You get a heated steering wheel. You get a 360-degree camera, parking assist. You have a lot while having all-wheel drive, while having, if you like Subarus and how they look, a good exterior. If you like Toyotas, the interface of them, the more rugged plasticky materials that are going to age well, as in they're not going to be the most comfortable, but they're going to not show a lot of damage. They're going to hold up well to basically anything but an apocalypse, probably. This might be the right vehicle for you. 215 horsepower propels this thing pretty far for being, a little bit heavier than a comparable gas-powered vehicle of this size, but it feels more stable. Handles corners better with the low center of gravity, and being a Subaru, being Japanese built, you can probably trust it to be pretty safe, pretty well designed, like everything else that Subaru puts out. So with that said, I wish you guys the best. I hope you take care. Always test drive one of these, but test drive the competition as well. Sleep on your decision before you write a check, or you sign your name on some pieces of paper that holds you accountable. Make sure you buy the right vehicle. And if you guys got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, check out the Twin Falls Subaru. I'll link them below, and I wish you guys the best. Until next time, see ya.